Jones, representing beside Mr. Jones, we have, he's from my home district in South Carolina, Mark Sanford. Next to Representative Sanford, we have Mr. Tim Hulskamp, representing, where am I at here? I lost my place. Candace for California's 4th district. Mr. Raul Labrador, Idaho's 1st district. On the end here, you might recognize he's Thomas Massey of Kentucky's 4th district. A lot of people in this room might like to know. This is a question for all of you. Let's make sure microphones are working and they're all on. Is everything? There we go. So you guys are all, you representatives, you esteemed gentlemen, are all members of the House Liberty Caucus, who means you have some libertarian blood streaming through your veins in some sense, in some way. What was it that attracted you to the ideas of liberty? These libertarian ideas, was it something that happened in college? How did you arrive at sort of a liberty mentality? I need you to take this question first. Does this work? I think y'all hear. Representing Michigan's 3rd Congressional.
I think you did that on purpose.
Just throwing a chip shot, I'd say 2 things. One was my brothers and I grew up on a family farm in the coast of South Carolina. And when you get that first pay stub and you look at FICA and all these other strange taxes, it hits you square between the eyes on how much it means. It was a combination of that. It was a combination of Dad sort of torturing us with some farm projects, but giving a real appreciation for how hard the average person works to earn $1, and yet at times how flippantly those same dollars are spent in Washington. And then lastly, I'd say I went to the University of Virginia for graduate school. And if you're, I agree, if you're there, you know, in Thomas Jefferson's academic village, what strikes you is the way and the degree to which the founding fathers studied the annals of history and saw the ways in which there was always a battle line with government on one side and liberty on the other. And the hallmark of the American experiment, that which they enshrined, was based fundamentally on pushing that line out toward liberty. And I think it's those 3 things that got me interested.
Congressman Amash wasn't here. The question was, how did you arrive at these libertarian ideas? Maybe as a young man or whatnot. Not that you
Well, with Justin, the idea started with him. He doesn't arrive at this.
I was born this way. Our gym teacher, when I was in middle school, and by the way, he's a big supporter now, but in middle school, he got some kids in trouble for what he thought was violating the rules when they weren't violating the rules at all. And I remember thinking that this was an abuse of authority.
Is his first name John?
And, I spoke up about it. And even at a young age, I was standing up to what I thought was arbitrary authority. I believed that we should follow the rule of law, and I really believed in the idea of liberty.
I guess my story about liberty goes to when I was 11 years old, and there was a war going on in a certain area of the country, of the world, and the president at that time, his name was Jimmy Carter, probably dating myself, but he thought he had a bright idea. I grew up on a farm and ranch in western Kansas, and he decided that if you wanted to sell stuff to Russia, that was going to be forbidden. So he started the Russian grain embargo. And if you might recall, does anybody know what war that was over? Who was fighting whom? Russia was, USSR was trying to take over Afghanistan. Maybe we could learn something from that. That's when I learned that big government can take away and impact the price of things you're trying to sell, whether you want to or not. And at 11 years old, that's when I think it does.
I want to add quickly on a more serious note that my parents were immigrants. And some of you have probably heard this story, but my dad came here very poor. And as a kid, I also remember him driving my brothers and me to school and telling us about how wonderful it was to live in this country, where you could become successful, you could provide for your family, regardless of what your background was, regardless of what your ethnicity was or your religion. The things that matter so much in other countries, where so much of it is tied to government control of the process, government, people who know government, who are connected to government, get ahead. We don't have that in this country, at least have not had that historically. That's starting to change. And that really, I think, affected me as a kid. And it's one of the reasons I feel so strongly about defending the system of government we have that the founders put in place.
Thank you. Since I'm the oldest one on the stage and the oldest one in this group tonight, I think my story is going to be totally different. I was born in a Democratic family out of Congress. A father who served in Congress for 26 years as a Democrat. I served in the North Carolina House as a Democrat. Changed my party affiliation because my belief that Ronald Reagan was necessary for the future of America. I became a Republican, was elected with Newt Gingrich in 1995, and I learned about what true government was, quite frankly, from my friend Ron Paul. Who invited me to be part of the Liberty Caucus when Ron Paul was here in the House of Representatives. And I learned more about monetary issues and foreign policy in the years that he served here when I was here than I have since I was a Democrat, a Republican, and I believe sincerely that the libertarian belief is the only hope for the Republican Party, and I'm delighted to be here tonight.
Ron Paul. For me, it wasn't a specific moment. For me, I was a Reagan, and I consider myself a Reagan Republican. I came to the United States from Puerto Rico at the age of 13. My mother was a JFK Democrat, and I came to the United States in 1981 to the mainland. And that's when we sort of became Republicans. I was 13 years old. My mother was a young single mother, and she decided to switch from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party. So as a young adult, and even as a new father and a new husband, I consider myself a Reagan Republican. And as I started listening to the Republican values, and especially the platform of the Republican Party, I really believed in the principles that I was hearing in the platform and the principles that we were espousing. And I started attacking Democrats because they were inconsistent in their principles, inconsistent in their values, and they had this philosophy that the ends justify the means. that whatever you wanted to accomplish, it was okay if you broke the rules or if you bent the rules a little bit. But as I became an older person and I started getting involved in politics, I realized that Republicans did the same thing, even though their platforms. So I started hearing arguments about justifying certain actions in a war, and this was the war in Iraq, certain actions by the administration. And actually, for a little bit of time, I started questioning myself, and I started thinking, am I really a Republican? Because I'm in a room full of Republicans, and I'm the only one who disagrees with the people that are espousing more warmongering and actually doing things like that. And then I realized that, no, I'm not in the wrong party. These people have hijacked my party. I'm not a strict libertarian like some of my friends here, but I consider myself a conservative with libertarian leanings, and somebody who can actually believe in liberty, in prosperity, and most importantly, the rule of law and following the rules in government.
Well discovered an applause line, Ron Paul.
Yes.
But, Justin Amash. My political epiphany came when I came home from school one day and found my mother in tears over the kitchen table. She had gotten a job as a real estate agent that year, had all sorts of plans for what she wanted to do for the family. She was sitting there in tears at the kitchen table. She'd been figuring out her taxes and realized that she miscalculated her withholdings, and basically all of her dreams and plans for the family gone up in smoke in that exercise. And that made a huge impression on me. When I was 14 years old, I started writing letters to the editor. That was long before Facebook or Twitter and all this internet nonsense. So if you wanted to jump into the debate, the only place you could do it was write a letter to the editor and hope maybe they'd publish it, and they did, to the chagrin of my family.
And he would post them on his wall and
I ran for the state assembly when I was 26 against the Republican establishment candidate, the mayor of Oxnard, and ended up beating him by 68.5% of the vote. 26 years old was way too young to run for office, and I said, well, I promise if elected I will grow older. But what I discovered in those years is it doesn't matter how old you are, it matters what your ideas are. If you will put those ideas out there in that marketplace of ideas, liberty is the future of mankind, and those old founders of the American Republic didn't call them self-evident truths for nothing. It helps to point them out to people, but when you do, they get it.
Ron Paul's name up here a lot tonight, and obviously each of you is a member of the House Liberty Caucus. And I guess my next question would be, so, the Republican establishment and others call you anti-business because you don't love crony capitalism. They say you're in league with the terrorists because you think the Fourth Amendment and the Bill of Rights matters. They attack you from every angle you can imagine. Do you see the Republican Party and the existence of the House Liberty Caucus, I think is indicative of this, getting better due to these libertarian ideas and these ideas flourishing within the GOP? So Mr. Jones is shaking his head no.
Thank you. I think since I went from the Democrat to Republican and now have my hopes for the future again, as I said earlier, is libertarian people like yourself taking your time as a member of an elected position. The Republican Party is just as co-opted by money as the Democratic Party. I look at this party and how we're spending money just like Democrats. When I look at this party continuing to want to fund Afghanistan, and 20 weeks ago, I went to Walter Reed, 2 Marines from Camp Lejeune in my district, had been severely wounded. I met 3 Army guys who had lost 1 leg each from Fort Bragg, which is not in my district. I then visited the Marines. One 23-year-old Marine had lost both legs and an arm from Louisiana with his daddy there with tears in his eyes. Then I see the other Marine from Camp Lejeune that's lost both legs and has to have his rectum rebuilt. And then I see how stupid our Republican Party is to keep funding the war in Afghanistan.
Any hope for the Republican Party?
I think so.
Absolutely. We've had fights all over the United States about the establishment against the grassroots, the establishment against young libertarians, and I keep reminding my Republican colleagues that if you want to continue to have a bunch of old people with old ideas in the Republican Party, you will no longer have a vibrant party. But if we can invite young people that will actually bring new ideas and will bring new energy to the party, that we will be the dominant party in the United States. And we can do that with the same philosophy, with the same ideology that we have had as Republicans for a long period of time. Ronald Reagan said that he was a libertarian. And he may have not always followed libertarian principles, but he was closer to libertarianism than any other Republican president that we have had in recent history. So, and because we haven't had close enough Republican candidates, we keep losing to people like Barack Obama, who's the worst president that we have had. Right, and you can ask Walter. They were a small group. Our group is growing in the House, and there are many people who want to join our organization because they think that those principles that we espouse are the principles that they believe in.
Congressman Mack?
I'm excited to look at some of these primaries and the way they're turning out in these House races because you all are getting involved. I think we're going to have probably another half dozen members of the Liberty Caucus. The one that excites me the most, and I've already gone down to his district to help him out in his general election, is Dave Brack. There are a lot of people that do not want to help him now. But look, he just gets up there and he espouses the principles that we espouse. When I heard him on TV on Fox that night, because I don't think many of us had heard about it, but when he came on, it sounded like the speech I gave the night that I won. And so that got me excited. There's hope here. I didn't know when I ran for Congress that there was kind of this, I call it like the ice cave on Hoth. Where the rebels are, forming. The staff and I are going around looking for the exhaust port, by the way. We haven't found it yet. But I didn't know this group existed when I ran. I just felt like I needed to do something. When I got here and saw that there are people just as passionate about fixing this country as I am, I got encouraged, and that's what keeps it going. And these new people that are going to show up, we've got to get to them. It's our job to get to them before, as I say, they become zombies, before they catch Potomac fever. And I think we can do that. So I'm excited about building the party.
We don't give up on the Republican Party, and I'm a lifelong Republican. My loyalty is not to the Republican Party, though. My loyalty is to the principles of the American founding. My loyalty to the Republican Party and its candidates extends only so far as it and they are loyal to those principles. Ronald Reagan put it this way back speech at CPAC, and part of the speech he says, our people long for a sense of greatness again. He says, I don't know about you, but I'm losing patience with those who rush to the microphones after the last election to say that we have to be we have to be more like the Democrats, and what they really meant was we need to fuzz up the differences between ourselves and our opponents. He asked, is it a third party we need, or is it a new and revitalized second party, painting its positions not in pale pastels but bold colors that makes it explicitly clear where we stand on all of the issues troubling the American people. How many political parties would you say there are around the world today? I'd argue there are only two. There are two that exist in our own nature. In every part of the world, in every period of history, you will always find those two parties. There is always a party of liberty, and there is always a party of authoritarianism. There is always a